Go ahead and record this meeting. This presentation will be recorded. Should you care to listen to it again, or if you have colleagues who would like to listen to it, we will post it probably tomorrow or Tuesday, and we'll send an email out about that. So I'm going to try to make this as short as possible and cover kind of the essentials. So we shouldn't be beyond 10:30, if even that, for this morning. So my name is Jovita Woodridge. I am the Volunteer Services Director at Volunteer Florida. And just a little bit about our organization. Some of you may be aware already, but we've been part of state government for over 20 years. We're considered a state service commission, and there's a state service commission in every state, and each state commission administers a large portion of national service funding. So we distribute about $30 million in federal, state, and local grants to help address local needs through volunteerism and service in the state. So as you see there, we're the governor's lead agency for volunteerism and national service. We're administratively housed in the office of the governor, so it's not specific to Governor Scott or any other governor. We span terms. We're also the lead agency for the state's emergency response team for volunteers and donations before, during, and after disasters. So we have an emergency management department within our organization. And then my department, I'm a department of one currently, but I'm sort of a liaison among volunteer stakeholders, volunteer landscape stakeholders in the state. So I do trainings, provide support, brainstorming sessions to help people either establish or grow their volunteer programs, and do a number of special projects. Of course, all of the duties is assigned, as we're all familiar with. Really enjoy working here, a fantastic team, and we really want to continually foster volunteerism in the state. So specifically, this Rural Community Assets Fund, we were thrilled last year to receive an appropriation through the Department of Education for this opportunity. We crafted this request for proposals ourselves, and it's just been a great opportunity to serve certain rural areas in the state. But the goal is for our grantees to recruit, equip, mobilize volunteers in eligible rural areas to address the educational needs of underserved children and youth. This is early childhood, these are early childhood settings all the way through 12th grade. And if a student is out of school and so you're doing some sort of alternative education work, that's fine too. So they don't technically have to be in the school system, but they must be headed towards graduation, headed towards post-secondary options, and so on. So it doesn't have to actually be in school. So we're talking little ones all the way through. We have a $100,000 appropriation for training and fund and training and support. And you can request anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. The minimum is $5,000. So be sure that that is not $4,998, but $5,000 to qualify or to be eligible, and then no more than $10,000. You will be required to provide a 25% cash or in-kind match. And remember that matches mean that it's something that's connected to the line item that you're requesting the money for. So it has to match that line item. So if you're requesting personnel, then part of your match can be for personnel. If you're requesting travel for a particular type of volunteer management training, then your match needs to coincide with that. So it can't be money that is just part of your organization randomly. It does have to connect to the money that you're requesting and the line items that you're requesting. We're going to have a training for all grantees in probably early fall. That date will be announced later. Funds from this grant can be used to pay for that training. We'll be doing webinars throughout the year and so on. And so really looking forward to getting together, being able to exchange ideas, provide support so that those grantees are growing their programs and able to better serve the young folks in their communities. And we have a chat box, so anytime you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Karen, are you able to see the screen? I'm sorry, I'm just seeing what you wrote. Okay, hopefully you're okay. Okay. So these are the eligible organizations, which is important here. So a public or private nonprofit organization. A public nonprofit organization is essentially any entity, government entity. So this can be the state, it can be the city or the county government, municipality, and then these are some of the IRS designations. So most of you probably are aware that you pretty clearly fall into one of these categories, but if you do not, if you're not sure, please send an email to rcaf@volunteerflorida.org, and I'm happy to help you figure that out if you aren't completely sure whether you're eligible. In terms of the prereq or this component of eligibility, you do have to already have experience in educational programming in one of these settings, but that experience does not need to be in one of the rural areas. So if you are in, for example, I'm here in Tallahassee, one of the eligible rural areas is just to our north. I could have an organization that does work in Leon County and wants to expand to Gadsden County. That's fine if that work has not been done in Gadsden, but I do need to have experience in having done it in Leon County or wherever the organization is operating. So hopefully that's clear. And then of course the RCAF funding needs to support the work that's going on in the eligible area. It cannot support the work that's going on in the metro area that's not eligible, for example. So let's say that I am using RCAF funding in part to support personnel for a volunteer manager. Well, I'm going to put the percentage of personnel that is specifically used to work with volunteers in that other rural county. So none of that percentage should be of the work, which you will have to determine yourselves, that's being done in this example, Leon County. So it maybe is maybe it's 16% salary, and that's what you put on your budget because of the employee's time. 16% of it ultimately is going towards work in that eligible rural area. So that's just an example there. And then your volunteers, of course, line up with that. Whatever that site is in that rural area, that has to be where the volunteers are doing their service. So what we're going to be doing is having each respondent and then grantee actually provide us with two areas that they want to focus on over the course of the contract period to improve on organizationally. And so we've taken this is the source, the document that we've pulled these particular volunteer management practices from. And so these are the 8 of them, and 2 you will be selecting on your application to work on. So you just want to have a look through these. Which of these do you want to see improvement on as you go through the year? Is it orienting and training your volunteers? You feel like that's an area of weakness that you could learn more about and want to strengthen possibly with the assistance of funds? Is it, that last one is actually just one, measuring outcomes and evaluating the process. I just had to format it. But so there's 8 of those. They're listed in the request for proposals. They're also listed on the actual proposal narrative, and you're just going to check off which ones of those you would like to improve on. You will, in the proposal narrative, in one of the sections, need to elaborate on why those are areas that you'd like to improve. So this is the most important part, is the rural areas that we are accepting applications on for. So I'm going to actually go to the next slide first. So there you go. We actually added 8 counties this year. If anybody has questions about which counties are eligible and why. I'm happy to provide you with that detailed documentation, but we used the definition of rural community that is in Florida statute that the Department of Economic Opportunity uses, and then in order to sort of expand that this year, we also looked at the USDA's Economic and Demographic Research Division's county codes, and those are actually through the Office of Management and Budget at the federal level. So well, a lot of technical information there, but we did make some determinations based on population to come up with these, I believe 37 or so counties. So this is a little more than half of the counties in the state. So again, I'm happy to provide more information should you be interested in that. All of this is listed in the request for proposals, of course. And so on your proposal narrative, you will be selecting which of these communities or areas you fall into. So all of those counties are listed here in one of these, and you will just write in which one of these is, or I think it's just like putting an X or something like that, near which one is which one you fall into. So just wanted you to see who our grantees were for 2016, 2017. We had a very short contract period, just a matter of months, because it was our first year, and so they've been very patient and flexible, and this money has been a real help to all of these organizations. We don't have any government entities. We didn't have any this round. We certainly want anybody who is eligible to apply. These just happen to be the organizations who were selected this last year. Well, we do have a state agency in terms of Tallahassee Community College, which is a state college, but primarily nonprofits here. As you can see, some smaller shops, a couple of United Ways, and so on. And you can see the names of some of their programming. Essentially all of them were mentoring programs, but you'll see Junior Achievement, Career Success ROTC, we've got STEM on there, and then an early childhood volunteer program was also selected this last round. So we do have 5 points that are dedicated to a special consideration. And so these are the 3 areas. You want to clearly connect the work you're doing with volunteers to one of these areas in your application. You'll have space to do that. These are what we want you to measure. Now note that we are not just about having more volunteers or more students served. There are a lot of ways in which organizations can increase their effectiveness in terms of enlisting volunteers, so we want to be sensitive and aware of that. So it could be that you have the same number of volunteers, but because of this funding, you're able to provide different services to those same students. They need the extra layer of math help, reading help, science help. You were only able to provide help in one of those areas before, but because of this funding, you have grown your capacity such that you can provide assistance in multiple areas. Or the number of services provided to students. So perhaps you do tutoring now, but you also want to be able to do mentoring. You also want to be able to do professional exposure trips or shadowing or something like that. So types of services or number of services are also fair game. We are not asking you to tell us exactly what those numbers are in terms of projection, but you do need to let us know which of these you plan on seeing increases in over the contract period. So those volunteer management practices that I mentioned to you, they are, as I mentioned, in the request for proposals. You're going to want to articulate which 2 of the 8 you are most interested in seeing improvement in your organization. Just a quick note, Appendix B does share all of the reporting, or most of the reporting requirements, the key ones. There will be a few more for people once they become grantees if they're awarded. But none of that needs to be filled out. It's just an FYI. Appendix B is just an FYI. You do not need to fill out the pre-assessment or the post-assessment or the data and activities. All of that would only be for organizations that are in fact grantees. But we put them in there so that people can review and have an idea of what some of the expectations would be. So that last one is you will be establishing or updating a volunteer management plan, and we'll have lots of resources about that. I'll be walking through that with grantees individually, but we want you to have that framework that is in writing, that is flexible, that you can just do your work from, conduct your work from, that helps to kind of lead and guide as you grow your programs. Okay, so budget, always very, very important. It's a large point total for the proposal. Your $5,000 to $10,000 and your 25% cash or in-kind match need to be very clear. And then we do have 3 budget categories. Please read these carefully and be sure that anything that you request is well within our examples and our intentions for this particular type of funding. We list that in the RFP as well. So you can support existing personnel financially or programmatically, which includes salary costs. You can do background checks for volunteers, any other type of capacity building for staff or volunteers, as long as it's connected to the volunteer programming, registration for particular training, in that travel section, travel to those trainings. You know, if you want to, again, if you were adding a type of service or type of curricula for the students, and there's a mentoring guide or a tutoring guide for it, and you need to provide those to your volunteers, that would be an example of training and support expenses. So travel expenses, they're going to have to be, and all of this will be, but this has to be in line with the state of Florida travel requirements, and everything needs to be an allowable cost that you request in your budget. Technology and equipment, you can use this for CRM, which is customer relations, relationship management software. So those are that's the type of software that can track volunteers, produce all kinds of really helpful, insightful reports and so on, and other types of equipment that you might need so that your volunteers can do the work that you've called them to do well. And you can read more about that in the RFP. And reminding again about that 25% match. It cannot be 24%. It needs to be 25% match. Okay, so I do want to go over real quickly to the actual application. Just give me one moment. Okay, so this is the proposal narrative that you're going to be completing. Your application is 2 parts. It's a proposal narrative, which is sort of, like I just mentioned, application narrative, but we are calling this because it's a request for proposal. It's the proposal. And so this will be one thing you complete, and then you will also complete the proposal budget narrative. We must receive both of those items. If I receive one at one time and one at the other, that is not going to count. We're not going to keep track of whether you've submitted half or all of your applications. So both of those attachments should be in your email to us when you are submitting your full proposal. So this is listed in the RFP as well as in the proposal narrative, which is Appendix D. You'll see, of course, what's most important is when it should be submitted, of course, and that's Wednesday, June 21st. You all have about 3.5 weeks for that. That proposal budget worksheet is Appendix C. This document that we're looking at right now, Appendix D, must be submitted in Microsoft Word. Do not PDF this. Don't handwrite it, don't print and scan it. Any of those things must be in Word. And then the Excel document, which is Appendix C, must remain in Excel as well. Of course, responding clearly and thoroughly to all prompts. I cannot emphasize the clearly enough. Remember that we are not familiar with your organization, so any sort of jargon, really complex long sentences, all of that is going to throw off those who are scoring these applications. So be simple, be very clear, thoroughly address the prompt. Don't provide us all kinds of additional information that we don't need. All that does is convolute the actual answer that we're looking for. So please keep that in mind. There are a couple of certifications that you'll check off at the bottom of the proposal narrative. Make sure you review your proposal narrative and your budget worksheet. Of course, we do not have we don't have points for grammar or spelling, but those make these prompts, these responses a little more difficult for us to read, catch the flow of, and so on. So have someone else look at it, make sure that this is clear, it's succinct, and comprehensive, and of course appropriately detailed. So you're going to submit both, as I mentioned before, within one business day. You will receive an email from us confirming receipt. If you then submit your application on Wednesday, June 21st at 1 p.m., it is not necessarily likely that you will receive an email before 5 p.m. letting you know. If we're available to provide that email to you, we will, but I strongly suggest more than one business day between the deadline and when you submit, so that you know with certainty that we've received it, and we are using that one business day. We may end up needing to use the full amount, especially once we get closer to the deadline. You are certainly welcome to resubmit your proposal if you do not receive an email confirmation from us within the one business day, of course, unless the deadline has actually passed. Now, I do want to show you real quickly some of these. So this is the section with the eligible rural areas and so on. But I do want to show you real quickly the way that these pages work. So the prompt is protected, so you can't write, you shouldn't be able to write, so you can't write here, which you can write in this response section. This is the full amount of space that you have with a Calibri 11-point font. So use your space very wisely. This should not extend onto the next page. If you type all the way down to the bottom, the typing will just start to disappear and we won't be able to see it. It doesn't extend to the next page. That is all the space that you have. So again, use that space wisely. Some are half pages. Like this one, you have this amount for the below prompt, this for the top one. So, you know, take your time with this, really optimize and make sure that you have the best language that you need to sufficiently answer the question or the prompt. All the way, scrolling is a little slow. So again, you'll have these certifications to check off. You want to make sure that you sign and submit the date for the proposal, and then you'll be good to go for that half of the application. The budget, I'm not going to go over it right now, but you will see a sample, and hopefully that's helpful for you. And then you are going to submit a budget. Some of the cells are locked because they have formulas and so on. Check all of your math, please, please, please. Very important to do. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to let me know. But again, there is a sample and then another worksheet within Appendix C that you'll actually complete. So I have a few minutes until 10:30. So here's our timeline, very, very important. Of course, the deadline is most important. We will have a couple of weeks, not quite 2 weeks, to review and score your proposals. July 4th is in there. We have some staff traveling within that time frame and so on, and that's why it's just going to take us a little bit of time. Because this is State Department, because this is funding from a state agency, we do have to publish a notice of intent to award. We will not send out an email about this, but this is an opportunity for people to know tentatively who we are granting the funds to. We're going to post this on our website, and if anybody takes issue with that, they can contact us about that. If that actually did occur, then that would delay some of the subsequent deadlines, but if not, then we will move on from there. But we do have to post for 3 business days or 72 hours or something like that. So that'll be a preliminary hooray for you. You'll know whether you are tentatively going to be funded, and then as long as we don't hear from individuals about, or organizations about these things, then we can move forward. There's a little bit of time between the notice of intent to award and providing contracts. That's because we have to assemble the contracts. We have a template, but then need to add in your budget and, you know, all kinds of other things. We want to make sure that we have that correct for you. We'll provide that to you all to be able to look over for a couple of days, or you'll have about a week to look over that, and then you'll want to, we'll be dating everything ideally August 1st for the beginning of the contract period. And we'll have an 11-month period for fiscal year 17-18. Oopsie daisy. All right, so this is actually Communities in School Bradford County, which is one of our current grantees, and then the Boys and Girls Club in Perry, Florida, Taylor County. And right in this picture, there are middle and high schoolers who read to the little ones. They require that they come in and do that. The kids love it, and the older students love to be able to do it as well, and it helps to improve all of the students' reading, which is really great. So I've been pleased to be able to do site visits with a number of our grantees this year. So if you have any questions right now, I'm going to open it up for questions, and then this email address, my email address is online, which is jovita@volunteerflorida.org, but please, if you have any questions related to this funding stream, please email RCAF. I try to keep this separate, and that's the way that I'm able to most efficiently respond to people's requests. Any questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much for your time. We're looking forward to seeing applications from you all. Again, let me know if you have any questions. And this presentation will be up either tomorrow or early next week should you need to review it again. You all have a great day.